Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins All World, where the everyday coins in your pocket could lead you to an unexpected fortune. Today's story is one you won't want to miss, because we're shining the spotlight on a coin that most people use without a second thought. We're talking about the 1971 Washington quarter. Yes, that regular-looking 25-cent coin might just be worth thousands, if you know exactly what to look for. At first glance, the 1971 quarter doesn't appear special. It's been used in vending machines, toll booths, laundromats, and countless everyday transactions. But what if I told you that hidden among these common coins are a few that collectors are desperately searching for, and they're willing to pay jaw-dropping prices to get their hands on one? Let's go back to 1971 for a moment. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to keep up with the growing economy. The quarter, featuring the iconic profile of George Washington on the front and the bold eagle design on the back, had already become a staple of American currency. But behind the scenes at the Mint, a few things happened that turned some of these ordinary coins into rare and highly valuable collector's items. That year, quarters were minted at 3 different facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Philadelphia had no mint mark, while Denver quarters were stamped with a D, and those from San Francisco carried an S. Most of the quarters you'll come across today will either have the D mint mark or none at all. But not all mint marks, and not all 1971 quarters, are created equal. You see, while the bulk of 1971 quarters were made for everyday use, the San Francisco Mint also produced proof coins, highly detailed, mirror-like coins made especially for collectors. These coins weren't meant for circulation. They were struck multiple times on polished dies to bring out the finest details and shine. But here's the twist: every once in a while, one of those proof coins accidentally ended up in circulation, or a rare error occurred during the striking process. And that's when things get very interesting. Let's talk about errors, because this is where things can go from ordinary to extraordinary in the blink of an eye. Some 1971 quarters were struck on the wrong metal planchet. Instead of the typical copper-nickel clad composition, a small number may have been mistakenly struck on silver or even foreign metal blanks. These coins look and feel slightly different, and if you're lucky enough to find one, you could be looking at something extremely valuable. Another major category of interest is striking errors, things like double strikes, off-center strikes, or coins struck with rotated dies. In particular, some 1971 quarters show strong doubling on the lettering or numbers. This is called a double die error. It can be seen most clearly in the words "Liberty," "In God We Trust," and sometimes even in the date. These kinds of errors are extremely rare, and when combined with a high-grade condition, they can fetch massive prices at auctions. But here's the catch: most people never check. That's why rare coins continue to show up in everyday change. Someone might unknowingly use a quarter that's worth hundreds or thousands of dollars just to buy a snack. That's what makes collecting and hunting for rare coins so exciting. You never know what you might find, and condition plays a huge role in determining a coin's value. Most coins you find in circulation have been through decades of wear, scratches, dents, fading. But a coin in mint state condition, meaning it has never been used and retains its original shine and sharpness, is a different story entirely. Those are the coins collectors crave. Combine that pristine condition with a rare minting error or an unusual planchet, and now you've got something special. You might be wondering, how can I tell if my 1971 quarter is one of the rare ones? The first step is to look closely at the mint mark. Is there a D, an S, or no mark at all? Next, examine the lettering under magnification. Does anything look doubled or unusual? Is the strike clean and crisp? Is the coin heavier or lighter than expected? These small clues could point to something valuable. If you think you found something, the next step is to get it professionally graded and authenticated. Services like PCGS or NGC can certify the coin and assign it a grade, making it easier to sell or auction. And speaking of auctions, this is where things get really exciting. Among the most remarkable discoveries of the 1971 Washington quarter are those that were struck with dramatic doubling, or struck on the wrong planchet, and survived in immaculate, uncirculated condition. These ultra-rare coins are the crown jewels of many collections, and when they go up for auction, the bidding can get intense. Now, here's what you've all been waiting for. One such extraordinary 1971 Washington quarter, featuring a rare error, flawless condition, and a certified grade, one stunned collectors when it sold for an unbelievable $73,000. That's right. $73,000. For a single quarter. That's the power of knowledge, attention to detail, and a little bit of luck. The next valuable coin might be sitting in your change right now, waiting to be discovered. So before you spend that quarter, take a second look. Because in the world of coins, the ordinary can suddenly become the extraordinary. Today, we're talking about a coin that many of us have probably seen or spent without a second thought, the 1996 Washington quarter. It's modern, it's familiar, and for most people, it looks like just another everyday coin. But trust me, this one deserves a much closer look. Because buried within the ordinary batches of these quarters is the potential for a rare, valuable find that could absolutely blow your mind. That's right. The 1996 Washington quarter might just be worth more than you ever imagined, if you happen to have the right one. So, let's dig in. First, let's get a quick refresher on what this coin is all about. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American currency since 1932, originally released to commemorate the 200th birthday of George Washington. The design remained largely unchanged for decades, with the famous portrait of Washington on the obverse, and the bold heraldic eagle on the reverse. By the time 1996 rolled around, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins to keep up with daily use. That year, Washington quarters were struck at multiple facilities: Philadelphia, which used no mint mark; Denver, marked with a D; and San Francisco, which produced proof versions with an S. While the design may have seemed routine, the mint was far from perfect. Errors, anomalies, and rare variations slipped into circulation, and that's where the story gets exciting. Now, the average person might look at a 1996 quarter and think, what's so special about this? But serious collectors know that rarity and value aren't always about age. Sometimes, it comes down to mistakes, errors made during minting that create a coin unlike any other. One of the most valuable kinds of coins out there are error coins. In the case of the 1996 Washington quarter, a handful of them were struck with dramatic minting mistakes. For example, there are quarters that were mistakenly struck on the wrong planchet, meaning the metal blank used wasn't even meant for a quarter. These off-metal errors can sometimes result in a quarter that's lighter or heavier than usual, with a different tone or edge. Some have even been found struck on foreign coin blanks. Then there's the famous double die error, a misalignment in the dies that creates a ghost-like doubling effect on the letters or numbers. When this happens on a 1996 quarter, you may see doubling on the word Liberty, the motto, "In God We Trust," or even on the date itself. These are incredibly rare, and collectors will pay top dollar for them, especially when the doubling is strong and visible without magnification. Let's also not forget about off-center strikes, where the coin is stamped unevenly, leaving part of the design missing. Or clipped planchets, where a portion of the coin is literally cut off during production. There are also broad strikes, die cracks, and repunched mint marks, all of which can add significant value to a quarter if found in combination with great condition, and that brings us to another key factor: condition. A coin's grade can make or break its value. Most coins you find in circulation are considered circulated, which means they show signs of wear, fading, and scratches. But a 1996 Washington quarter that's never been used, what collectors call mint state, can be worth much more, especially if it has a recognized minting error. The closer your coin is to a perfect grade of MS-70, the more valuable it becomes. Even proof coins, those made specifically for collectors, can command big prices if they have errors. The San Francisco Mint produced beautiful mirror-like quarters in 1996, and sometimes, even these high-quality coins contain small but significant flaws. These are rare, and finding one is like striking gold in the world of modern coins. Now, maybe you're thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but what are the actual chances that a 1996 quarter I have is valuable? Well, let me put it this way. With millions of these coins still in circulation, and most people unaware of what to look for, there's always a chance that a hidden treasure is still out there, tucked into a jar of old change, resting in a roll from the bank, or sitting in a childhood collection that's long been forgotten, and the value of these rare finds? That's where things go from interesting to unbelievable, because among all the 1996 Washington quarters out there, one particular example, featuring a rare and dramatic mint error, certified in pristine, uncirculated condition, shocked the collecting world when it was valued at a jaw-dropping $80,000. Yes, you heard that right. $80,000. For a quarter, this is the reason so many people fall in love with coin collecting. It's not just about history, it's about possibility. That humble coin you've walked past 100 times could actually be the most valuable item in your house. Today, we're diving into a coin that has quietly passed through millions of hands but might just be holding a life-changing secret. We're talking about the 1978 Washington quarter. That's right, a regular-looking quarter that, under the right conditions, could be worth far more than 25 cents. In fact, if you stick around to the end of this video, I'll tell you exactly how much one extremely rare version of this coin sold for, and it's a number you won't believe. Let's start with a little background. The Washington quarter has been a staple of American coinage since 1932, featuring the unmistakable profile of the nation's first president on the front and a powerful eagle design on the back. By 1978, the design was so familiar that most people never looked twice at these coins. But behind the scenes at the U.S. Mint, as machines stamped out quarter after quarter, some unexpected variations and errors slipped through the cracks, and those are the ones that have become incredibly valuable to collectors today. In 1978, quarters were minted at 3 major locations: Philadelphia, no mint mark; Denver, marked with a D; and San Francisco, marked with an S. While the bulk of these coins were standard issue and used in circulation, a small number, especially those from San Francisco, were proof coins created with extra care for collectors. But even among those specially made coins, things didn't always go perfectly. Now here's where it gets exciting. You see, when coins are struck, precision is everything. But in the fast-paced world of minting, even a tiny slip can result in a coin that looks very different from the rest, and that's where value starts to skyrocket. One of the most sought-after errors is the double die. That's when the design is struck slightly off-center twice, creating a ghost-like doubling effect, especially visible in the lettering and numbers. If you spot a 1978 quarter where the words, "In God We Trust," "Liberty," or the date itself appear doubled or distorted, don't spend it. That could be your ticket to a major payday. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly aligned during the striking process. This can leave part of the design missing or misaligned, another highly desirable trait among collectors. Then you have wrong planchet errors, where a quarter may be struck on a blank intended for another coin, like a nickel or a foreign denomination. These are extremely rare, and if certified authentic, can command stunning prices. Another feature to watch for is the mint mark itself. On some 1978 Denver or San Francisco quarters, collectors have found repunched or misaligned mint marks, small flaws that make a big difference. When paired with an uncirculated condition, these variations can launch a coin into a much higher price bracket. Now let's talk about condition. This is where even a common coin can become a star. The vast majority of 1978 quarters are heavily circulated. They've been scratched, worn down, and dulled by decades of use. But a quarter that's been preserved in pristine, mint state condition, with no signs of wear and all its original luster, can be worth far more. In fact, coins graded MS-65 or higher by professional grading services are the ones that often attract serious attention from high-end collectors and auction houses. And then, there are the proof coins from San Francisco. These coins were never meant to enter circulation and were struck using highly polished dies to create mirror-like surfaces and crisp details. Occasionally, though, an error would make its way even into a proof coin, like a doubling, a misaligned die, or a planchet flaw. Combine that with perfect condition, and you've got a coin that goes far beyond average collector value. You might be thinking, sure, this all sounds great, but how do I know if I've got one of these rare versions? Great question. Start by looking closely. Use a magnifying glass or even your phone's zoom. Check the lettering for any doubling. Look at the mint mark for odd positioning or doubling. Check the coin's weight, edge, and shine. And if you spot something truly unusual, send it to a professional grading service for verification. The experts at PCGS or NGC can confirm if your coin is the real deal, and assign it an official grade that will help you sell it for top dollar. Now for the part you've been waiting for. Among all the 1978 Washington quarters ever produced, there exists an incredibly rare specimen, featuring a dramatic mint error, struck in pristine condition, and certified by professionals as being one of the finest known. That single coin stunned the collecting world when it reached a final auction price of $89,000. Yes, you heard that right. $89,000. For a single quarter. Today, we're talking about a coin that might be hiding in your change jar right now, and under the right conditions, it could be worth a small fortune. That's right, we're diving deep into the world of the 1982 Washington quarter. Now, most people would glance at a 1982 quarter and assume it's just an average coin. After all, it's only a few decades old, it was made by the millions, and it doesn't look particularly unusual at first glance. But what if I told you that this unassuming coin actually hides a fascinating story, one that involves minting changes, production shortages, and a few rare variations that collectors are absolutely crazy for? Let's rewind to 1982. It was a year of economic shifts and cost-cutting measures at the U.S. Mint. That year, the Mint made some major changes. Most notably, they stopped producing uncirculated mint sets for the public due to budget cuts. That might not sound important at first, but it means one huge thing: fewer high-quality examples of coins like the 1982 quarter were saved in pristine condition. So today, finding one in great shape is already a challenge. But when you add rare errors or unique features into the mix, now you're talking about something truly special, and incredibly valuable. Let's break it down. The 1982 Washington quarter was produced at two mints for general circulation: Philadelphia, which had no mint mark, and Denver, marked with a D, just to the right of Washington's ponytail. Both versions were made in high numbers, but here's where it gets really interesting. Because of the production environment that year, there were inconsistencies in the die-making process. This led to variations in design details, as well as a number of striking errors that are now highly prized by collectors. One of the most famous varieties is the 1982 D Washington quarter with a strong D mint mark. In some versions of this coin, the D is unusually bold and sharp, while in others it's faint, doubled, or slightly misaligned. Collectors also watch for die breaks, cuds, off-center strikes, and, one of the most exciting of all, double die obverse, where the design appears slightly duplicated on the same coin due to a misaligned or double-struck die. You might even come across a clad layer missing error. That's when part of the coin is struck without its outer nickel layer, leaving a copper-colored appearance on one or both sides. These types of minting flaws are not only rare, they're eye-catching, and they significantly boost a coin's value. And here's another twist. Because no official uncirculated sets were made in 1982, the only way collectors could get high-quality versions of these coins was through sheer luck, by pulling them from circulation and preserving them immediately. That's why finding a 1982 quarter in mint state, MS 65 or higher, is extremely difficult. In fact, even a normal 1982 quarter without errors can fetch decent money if it's in immaculate condition. But if it has both a high grade and a known error or variation, now you're entering rare territory. Collectors also pay close attention to weight. The standard clad quarter from 1982 should weigh about 5.67 grams. But due to production quirks and misfeeds, some quarters from this year were struck on planchets that are either too light or too heavy. Others may have been struck on foreign blanks, which is exceedingly rare, but not impossible. Coins like these, when discovered and authenticated, cause a stir in the collecting world. Now, you may be wondering, how can I tell if my 1982 quarter is one of these rare gems? The first step is to check the mint mark. Is it a Denver D, or does it have none at all, indicating Philadelphia? Then, look closely at the lettering, especially around Liberty, In God We Trust, and the date. Does anything look doubled or distorted? Does the edge look unusual? If you have a coin scale, check the weight. Even a minor discrepancy could point to an unusual origin, and most importantly, check the condition. Is your coin shiny, scratch-free, with all the fine details still crisp? If so, you might want to send it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC to get it certified. A high grade from them can turn a nice coin into a truly valuable one. All of these elements, rarity, errors, condition, and historical context, combined to make certain 1982 Washington quarters incredibly valuable to collectors. These aren't just coins anymore, they're tiny time capsules of a unique moment in minting history. So now, the moment you've been waiting for. Among the most incredible finds from this year was a 1982 Washington quarter that featured a dramatic minting error, was struck in near-perfect condition, and had a rare variation that set it apart from millions of others. This single coin was authenticated and sold at auction for an astonishing $93,000. Today, we've got a real gem for you. It's a coin that's often overlooked by casual collectors but holds some serious value in the right condition, a coin that, if you're lucky enough to have it, could be worth far more than its face value. We're talking about the 1965 Washington quarter. Now, you may be thinking, what's so special about a 1965 quarter? It's just another coin from the 60s, right? Well, let me tell you, there's much more to this coin than meets the eye. It has a unique history, an interesting production background, and some rare minting errors that make it a standout among other coins from that era. By the end of this video, you'll see just how valuable the 1965 Washington quarter can be, especially in mint condition or with rare errors. So, stick around, let's take a quick trip back in time to 1965. It was a significant year in U.S. history. The country was in the midst of the Vietnam War, and President Lyndon B. Johnson was leading the nation. But what most people don't know is that 1965 was a year of change for U.S. coinage. Prior to 1965, quarters were made with 90% silver, but due to rising silver prices and a coin shortage, the U.S. government decided to eliminate silver from the quarter and replace it with copper and nickel. This marked the beginning of the clad coinage era. So, if you have a Washington quarter from 1965, it's likely made from a copper-nickel clad composition, meaning it's not the same as the silver quarters that came before. But here's where it gets interesting. Because the transition to the clad composition was rushed, there were a few hiccups in the minting process. These hiccups resulted in striking errors and mintage variations that make some 1965 Washington quarters incredibly rare and valuable today. One of the most important things to understand about the 1965 Washington quarter is the mint mark. Most of these quarters were produced at the Philadelphia Mint, but they were released with no mint mark, unlike coins made in other years that clearly indicate their origin with a letter, like D for Denver or S for San Francisco. In 1965, however, Philadelphia coins were struck without any mint mark, so finding a 1965 quarter with no mint mark is a given. But don't be fooled, just because it doesn't have a mint mark doesn't mean it's a run-of-the-mill coin. What makes the 1965 quarter so appealing to collectors is that a relatively small number of these coins were produced compared to later years. Additionally, due to the transition to clad coinage, the die quality was sometimes subpar, leading to many striking flaws. Some 1,965 quarters display issues like double-struck errors, where the design appears faint or duplicated due to misalignment. Others show off-center strikes, where the design is missing or incomplete on one side of the coin. These errors can make a seemingly normal quarter into a highly desirable collector's item, but it's not just the errors that make the 1965 Washington quarter worth money. It's also the condition. As you might expect, most of these quarters were used in everyday transactions, meaning they've been heavily circulated and show signs of wear. However, if you happen to have a 1965 quarter in pristine, uncirculated condition, it's worth far more than face value. Coins with high grades, like those rated MS-65 or higher, are much rarer and more valuable. Collectors pay top dollar for well-preserved quarters from this year. Why? Because finding a 1965 Washington quarter in great shape is a rare occurrence. After all, the coin was produced during a time of transition, and the quality of the minting process wasn't as consistent as it could have been. A high-quality coin from this era is something collectors cherish, and they're willing to pay handsomely for it. Then, we have the minting errors that collectors are constantly on the lookout for. These can range from the minor, like a doubled die, to the more dramatic, like an off-center strike or a clad layer error. In some cases, a 1965 quarter might have been struck on the wrong type of planchet, resulting in a coin that's worth far more than its copper-nickel content. These coins, when properly authenticated and graded, can bring in significant sums at auction. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, I get it, this coin sounds special, but how much could it really be worth? Well, here's the exciting part. For a pristine 1965 Washington quarter, especially one with a rare minting error or in high-grade condition, it could be worth a considerable amount. While the value of a typical circulated 1965 quarter might only be a few dollars, a well-preserved coin or one with a unique error could sell for much more. In fact, one such coin sold at auction for an incredible $10,000, that's right, $10,000 for a single 1965 Washington quarter. Who would have thought that a coin that's more than half a century old could fetch such an impressive price? So, if you've got a 1965 Washington quarter lying around, it might be worth taking a closer look. Even if it's just a regular, well-preserved coin, it could be a hidden treasure. But if it happens to have one of those rare errors, it could mean you've stumbled upon something truly valuable. It's always a good idea to check your quarters, especially the older ones, for any signs of a minting error or unique features that might set them apart from the crowd. Thanks for watching, coin lovers. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on discovering more coin treasures. Until next time, keep collecting, keep searching, and who knows? You might just find the next big coin that could change your life.